We are presenting.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Best Practices with Brazil and with the government of Brazil and the Global March for the Eradication of Child Labor. My name is Maida Lacerda. I'm the head of the International Relations for the Ministry of Labor and Employment in Brazil. And I'm honored to serve as your moderator for this important discussion. We are gathered here with a shared sense of urgency. Despite global commitments, the target of the SDG 8.7 to eliminate child labor by 2025 remains unmet. This challenge demands innovation, collaboration, and a renewed focus on what works. Today, we have a powerful opportunity to learn from two complementary perspectives. From the government of Brazil, we will hear about the innovative Special Mobile Inspection Group for Child Labor, a robust strategy combining enforcement, intelligence, and social dialogue to tackle the worst forms of child labor in key sectors. From the Global March Against Child Labor, we will gain insights into area-based approach and child labor monitoring and remediation systems, which offer scalable, community-rooted frameworks to identify, protect, and reintegrate children. Our goal is to explore how these models, one rooted in strategic public enforcement and the other in community-based monitoring, can inspire and reinforce each other to create lasting change. I would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished speakers. From Brazil, we have Ana Lugica Leite Campos and Roberto Padilha Guimarães. And from the Global March, we have Ghazal Malik. We will begin with the presentations, followed by a Q&A session. Please note that the entire session will be conducted in English. Let us begin. I now would like to invite our first present to start. Ana Lugica, please take the floor.
Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues. My name is Ana Lugica Leite Campos. I'm a labor inspector at Brazil's Ministry of Labor and Employment since 2007. And now I'm the vice coordinator of the National Commission for the Eradication of Child Labor. I work with my colleague, Roberto Padilha Guimarães, who is here today with us. And he's our national coordinator of child labor inspection and also coordinates the National Commission for the Eradication of Child Labor. First of all, we would like to thank you, all the colleagues from the Brazil's Ministry of Labor and Employment, the National School of Labor Inspection, the Alliance 8.7 Secretariat, and our co-host Global March Against the Child Labor for their commitment to this event. I'm going to present now, please. It is a pleasure to join you today at this Alliance 8.7 Action Group webinar to share Brazil's recent experience with a specialized enforcement team dedicated to combating child labor, the Special Mobile Group for Child Labor Inspection, known as GMTI in Brazil. The presentation focuses on how GMTI has acted, particularly in the footwear industry sector, to promote the sustainable reduction of child labor. Throughout this presentation, I will walk you through the structure, methodology, and results of our recent inspections, as well as our strategies to ensure long-term protection for children and adolescents who are removed from illegal work situations. To begin, let me provide a brief overview of who we are and how we operate. Within the Ministry of Labor and Employment, the Labor Inspection Department coordinates the nationwide actions designed to enforce labor rights, prevent violations, and correct unlawful practices. Within this structure, the National Coordination of Child Labor Inspection is responsible for monitoring and combating child labor across the country. At the heart of these efforts is the Special Mobile Group for Child Labor Inspection, known as GMTI. This group plays a unique and fundamental role, especially in the cases of high complexity, where specialized expertise, strong interinstitutional cooperation, and rapid coordinated action are required. The GMTI is one of the most important strategies of the Brazilian labor inspection in the fight against child labor. Our work depends on multi-institutional support involving partners such as the federal police and the labor prosecutor's public office. The GMTI is a specialized national team of labor inspectors who are fully trained to identify, characterize, and combat the child labor. Let me highlight the main characteristics of this group. The GMTI is composed of inspectors who are have advanced specialization in child labor issues. It operates nationwide and can be mobilized to any region when suspected cases require in-depth investigation. It works in close cooperation with the federal police and the labor prosecutor's public office, enabling immediate action and strong legal enforcement. Its approach combines repressive action, that is, stopping illegal practices on the spot, with interinstitutional articulation, social dialogue, and preventive strategies. And very importantly, it focuses on the sustainable reduction of child labor, meaning that our aim is not merely to remove children from a single situation, but to prevent recurrence and transform local environments. The GMTI work is guided by three main objectives. First of all, they remove as many children and adolescents as possible from illegal work. They protect them fully, preventing reentry into child labor, and transform the practices of economic sectors to prevent new violations. To meet these objectives, we conduct inspections that involve technical, socioeconomic, and interinstitutional high complexity. The GMTI reaches isolated geographic areas and activities are classified as the worst forms of child labor. Recently this year, we had important GMTI operations in the footwear industry sector in the southeast of the country. In September, the special group carried out an operation in the towns of Nova Serrana and Perdigão, an important footwear production hub in the state of Minas Gerais. Our team consisted of 4 labor inspectors, 1 labor prosecutor, and 6 federal police officers. They inspected 68 establishments. From them, 65 had child labor. That means 95% of them. And 108 children and adolescents were found in illegal work situations. 2 months later, in November, we conducted a major GMTI operation in the town of Birigui in the state of São Paulo, another national footwear hub in Brazil. Birigui is one of the most significant footwear production clusters in Brazil, especially for children's shoes. Yet, paradoxically, it is also a region where the hazardous work for adolescents has historically been recurrent. Our team consisted of 5 labor inspectors, 1 labor prosecutor, and 6 federal police officers in that operation. They inspected 54 establishments in footwear industry. 50 of them had child labor, which means 93% of non-compliance. They found 108 adolescents as well in hazardous conditions. These numbers speak for themselves. They reflect not only the prevalence of violations in those specific regions, but for sure the necessity of targeted operations that reach production chains within the footwear sector. Now we are going to talk about the inspection itself, about the methodology used in every operation that the Special Mobile Group of Inspection Against Child Labor operates. The GMTI inspection is never improvised. Its planning is meticulous. Our team begins with a detailed pre-inspection analysis in which they analyze previous studies about child labor, cross-reference government databases, understand the production process, identify likely child labor tasks, map hotspots, prepare adapted inspection documents, and design detailed daily routes for the team. This careful preparation ensures that when inspectors reach the field, they can identify violations rapidly, safely, and efficiently. Once in the workplace, in each visited establishment, following a structured sequence, the inspectors identify individuals under 18, observe their tasks performed, and evaluate the working conditions. Therefore, after formally detecting child labor and removing the children and teenagers from that situation, the GMTI demand payment of their labor rights and issue the infringement notices. The first step of the inspection is the identification. Each child or adolescent is interviewed by the inspectors through an online system that registers their personal identification, the details of tasks performed, the information about the employer, and the analysis of the general work conditions. And then the second step of the inspection is a detailed analysis about the working conditions on the found children and teenagers. The inspectors of the GMTI examine their activities performed, the chemicals used, the machinery and the equipment, and the work tools, and also the whole work environment and conditions. The footwear manufacturing involves several hazardous elements, including the exposure to chemicals, many containing benzene and harmful hydrocarbons, the use of machinery and tools that are prohibited for children, and the risks of physical exertion, the electrical accidents, burns, and injuries. According to the Decree 6481 of 2008, these hazards are listed in the worst forms of child labor, known as the tip list here in Brazil, which forbid exposure to toxic substances and the operation of dangerous machinery for the children and teenagers. This exposure to harmful chemicals such as benzene and toxic hydrocarbons is classified under the item 84 of Brazil's tip list. These substances pose serious risks to children and adolescents, unfortunately. And then they also have in the footwear industry the operation of machinery, which is prohibited for children and teenagers, according to the item 87 of the tip list. The risks of operating those machineries include the musculoskeletal injuries, the burns, fractures, amputations, and even cardiac arrest. After identifying the violations against the children and teenagers, the GMTI determines the appropriate measure. For the children and adolescents under 16, they are immediately removed from work. And the adolescents aged 16 or 17, if performing prohibited activities, are also removed unless the company provides a safe, lawful activity for immediate function change. In the end, after identifying the children and teenagers, analyzing the work environment, taking the immediate measures of removal or function change, the legal measures take place. The employers are required by the inspectors to pay all labor right dues. And finally, the infringement notices are issued, initiating the legal and administrative procedures in the Brazilian Labor Inspection Department of the Ministry of Labor and Employment. Removing a child or a teenager from illegal work is only the first step of this big life change. Our responsibility continues after the inspection procedures end. Following the removal of the children and teenagers, the labor inspection activates the Brazil's Child and Adolescent Protection Network, which includes the guardianship councils, the social services, the health services, education representatives, prosecutor's office, and the local government agencies. These actors work together to ensure that children receive immediate assistance, psychological support, reintegration to the school, and access to health and social services. The focus is full protection besides the legal follow up. And for adolescents aged 14 and over, the labor inspection articulate their inclusion into the professional learning programs as apprentices in accordance with Brazilian law. The companies obligated to hire apprentices are notified by the inspection in that region where the operation occurred. The training entities are mobilized to offer vacancies in their training programs, and the adolescents removed from child labor are given the priority for inclusion in the training program and hiring. This is one of the most effective long-term strategies to break cycles of poverty and labor exploration. This transforms a vulnerable situation into an opportunity for education, income, and social inclusion. And the adolescents get professionalized with training classes and practice working days in exchange of earning their income in a special kind of work contract for apprentices with the companies. And then another crucial component of our post-inspection work is engaging with the economic sector. The labor inspection issue collective orientations or guidance notifications to all enterprises in the footwear industry in that region where the operation occurred, clarifying several aspects. The prohibition of hiring adolescents under 16, except as apprentices in the training program from the age of 14 and over. The prohibition of hazardous works for 16 and 17 years olds, and the legal consequences of using the child labor. The special group, GMTI, also sends inspection reports to the Labor Prosecutor's Public Office, which may propose conduct adjustment agreements and or public civil actions against the employers that had child labors, and when necessary against local governments to ensure proper public police implementation. The social dialogue is essential for sustainable change. So the GMTI also maintains constant communication with labor unions and industry associations, promoting the inclusion of child labor prohibition clauses in collective agreements, events for companies, health and safety professionals, and accounting offices, dissemination of educational materials to clarify which activities constitute child labor, and mobilization of companies to prioritize professional learning programs for adolescents previously found in illegal work. This cooperation helps transform the productive environment, creating a culture of legal compliance and social responsibility. Following large operations, the GMTI also supports municipal districts in promoting public awareness campaigns, strengthening local and national child labor reporting channels, training protection network professionals about the child labor, developing education materials for families, adolescents, and children, and encouraging the creation of municipal district commissions for the prevention and eradication of child labor. These measures ensure that the impact of the operation is long lasting and leads to structural change in their lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, the fight against child labor requires a coordinated, persistent, and well structured action. The Special Mobile Group of Child Labor Inspection plays a decisive role in this agenda, bringing together a specialized knowledge, strong enforcement capacity, interinstitutional collaboration, preventive strategies, engagement with employers and unions and local governments, and above all, a commitment to protecting every child and every teenager in Brazil. The results we achieved in the footwear industry sector show the magnitude of the challenge, but also the power of a coordinated action. The GMTI is one of the most important practices of Brazil, labor inspection, in the pursuit of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, Target 8.7, on eradication of child labor. Each child removed from unsafe and prohibited work is a life redirected toward health, education, and dignity, and with continuous cooperation among public institutions, private sector partners, and civil society, we move each day closer to a Brazil free from child labor. Thank you very much for your attention, and Roberto and I are available for questions and further dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for your inspiring presentation. Before I comment on your amazing presentation, I'd like to let everybody know, our viewers know, that we're going to have a Q&A session after the presentations, and then you can make comments and ask some questions. We would like you to give us your name and your organization and where you're from so we can have a better idea of our target audience. And of course, Anna, congratulations to you and your team on this amazing initiative. I thought it was very interesting what you say about fighting and inspection, but also the mobile unit has something on education and prevention. And I think this is key, right? If we want to finally win this battle against child labor, we have to have this type of initiative, not only searching for it and fighting it, but also learning how to prevent and to protect children from that. So congratulations on this amazing, amazing
Thank you.
initiative. I'm very proud to
Thank you,
work with my
Maida.
colleagues from the labor inspection unit. It's amazing. So now, without further ado, I think we can go on and to our colleagues from the Global March. against child labor. And please, Malik, you have the floor for your presentation to talk about monitoring and this area approach. Um, this area approach system that your guys are working on. We'd like to hear all about that. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying to share my presentation. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Ghazal, and I'm from the Global March Against Child Labor. I'm the lead for policy and advocacy. And today I'll be presenting just an overview of our work on using the area based approach, some good practices, and how we have been implementing the monitoring and remediation systems. So let's begin. The first part of this presentation is going to focus on what really the area based approach is about. The name is very self explanatory, but I would really like to focus here that the name area based approach means that the child labor intervention can be focused in a village, it can be a district, and it can be a neighborhood. Essentially, an area based approach, the spirit of an area based approach is community. So it's a very grassroots, community led, community oriented, and community owned approach. However, it's not limited to rural areas, and it can also be expanded to urban areas. We will delve into that as well. So, area based approach also addresses all forms of child labor. It doesn't differentiate or prioritize one form of child labor over the other. So it's very all encompassing. It covers visible and hidden forms, domestic child labor in agriculture, and other informal economies. And like I mentioned, it is very community centered, but it's also rights based, and it can also include a supply chain approach as well. Area based approach is also not just about preventing child labor, it's about addressing the systemic root causes of child labor, so from poverty to gender inequality to food insecurity. It's a very holistic model which can include a variety of socioeconomic challenges that are responsible for child labor. And of course, you cannot implement area based approach without collective effort. So everyone in the community, all key stakeholders, rights holders, are included in implementing the area based approach and making it successful. So, from parents to teachers to communities, local government, labor officers, community focused organizations, child protection services, civil society organizations, trade unions, teachers unions, depending on the context, play a very important role. The strong aspect, one of the very important strengths of an area based approach is that it prevents, since it is focused on the entire area, it prevents child labor from shifting from one sector to another. Because if you are not addressing the root causes of child labor, it's very easy for the child to move from one sector to another. Uh, Area based approach is incomplete without including a child labor monitoring and remediation system. We will come to that as well. Um, it's also very important to understand that the area based approach is aligned with government principles, policies, and frameworks, as well as global ILO standards and conventions. And essentially, in very simple words, area based approach creates child labor free and child friendly spaces, with child protection at the center of the approach, with community participation, geographical focus, and also keeping sustainability and withdrawal and prevention in mind, which is the most basic aspect of any intervention that focuses on addressing child labor. There are broadly 5 steps or five minimum criteria to implement an area based approach. You have to start by, when we implement an area based approach, a pilot in the form of a child labor free zone or a child friendly space or a child friendly municipality. We start with identifying the target areas, which are the areas most at risk, and the areas that that need an appropriate intervention, followed by a comprehensive needs assessment and stakeholder analysis. And based on that, we develop an area action plan, including the identified priorities. It's also important to identify and engage relevant stakeholders and build their capacity on how to implement the area based approach, how to implement the child labor monitoring and remediation system, and most importantly, building effective partnership for collective action. So, I just covered very technical, theoretical aspects of what an area based approach is. I'd like to take the audience through practical examples of what an area based approach looks like and some of the work that we have been doing. So, child labor free zones are one of the most common examples of an area based approach model. It can be a village, it can be an urban neighborhood, it can be a cluster of communities where children are being systematically taken away from labor and reintegrated into formal full time schooling. Again, there is no distinction between different forms of child labor, and a child labor free zone. Essence is that every child has the right to education. There is also a focus on invisible children and also the communities and their households who need economic interventions for economic resilience and income enhancement. Like ABA model that I explained, it involves all stakeholders, teachers, parents, children, and most importantly, the community plays a very, very important role. Child labor free zones have been implemented. The origin of child labor free zones is in the global south. So, starting from India, it has been implemented to various parts of East and West Africa, and other parts of South Asia and Southeast Asia as well. So, it's a very recognized global area based approach model. Whereas a child friendly village model is rooted more in India. It works at a village level where you start building a child-friendly village model by building trust with the most important councils of the village, with the needs assessment of what the community needs in the first place, what are the socio-economic, political indicators, educational indicators, and that really decides the foundation of what the child-friendly village model will look like. There is district level and state level consultation as well, because the intervention is not rooted or or not isolated at just the grassroots level, but also connected with policies at the state and the national level. There's a big focus on withdrawal of child labor, of course, but also increasing the enrollment of children in schools and forming child and youth participatory governance groups where children and youth take the lead in not just community awareness, but also forming platforms, forming groups that are sustainable. And through these groups, they keep their concerns and their issues towards duty bearers in the forms of letters or campaigns or collective campaigning on raising awareness, which also strengthens their own position in the community and makes their role more sustainable. There is a role of larger duty bearers and stakeholders at the village level as well, from education groups to labor inspectors. And once they all work together, it takes somewhere around a child friendly village model or a child labor free zone takes a model takes between 2 to 3 years, which is a pilot, and eventually after 3, 4, or 5 years, you're able to hand over the child friendly village to the community to take ownership, but also to the government duty bearers to take accountability and ensure that the child friendly village can sustain even after a project intervention has exited. Besides just addressing prevention and remediation of child labor, area based approach also is very holistic. And some of the very recent programs that we have been implementing under area based approach also increasingly includes emerging socioeconomic challenges such as food insecurity and school feeding program, is one of the examples in Uganda, in the Mount Elgon region of Uganda. A school feeding initiative has been going on, where we provide seeds to schools and build their capacity so that they can grow their own food and children can come back to school. As you can see, it has led to an increase, a significant increase in school enrollment in 2 years. Somewhere it's 35%, somewhere it's not a lot, it's 7% due to different challenges that are context based. Somewhere it's also 50%. So the idea is to make the area-based approach as holistic as possible and to keep including emerging socioeconomic challenges because child labor becomes complicated as time proceeds. Here, I'd like to highlight that child area-based approach is not just rooted in rural settings. There are also a lot of urban ABA-led models. For example, the municipal model for detection and eradication of child labor in Peru, or child labor-free municipalities in Nepal, or the seal for child labor-free establishments in Philippines. Happy to share more information about it, but due to time constraints, I'll just take everyone through what they are called. And these models essentially prioritize children's rights and addressing child labor in planning and budgeting and legislation, and coordination across different ministries, different authorities, and different duty bearers. This also is able to provide them data which focuses on the reduction of child labor, but also helps the companies in human rights due diligence strengthening for themselves. Like I mentioned earlier, the part two of this presentation will focus on CLMRS, or Child Labor Monitoring and Remediation System, without which an area-based approach is incomplete. A CLMRS is essentially a tool which can be adapted for a certain community, for a certain setting. And it's a tool, it's a database that collects information on identified children in child labor or children at risk of child labor, and how to withdraw them and generate referrals and generate remediation. CLMRS has different steps, and it seems very elaborate, but all these steps are very, very essential. In fact, these are the bare minimum steps to to implement a CLMRS. Starting with dialogue building in communities, to capacity building of community level actors, developing the relevant tool for monitoring what kind of tool really works for the community, what tool is sustainable, what is the database that makes sense for in this, if there's an agriculture setting, what is the database that makes sense for farmers, since a lot of times it's farmers who are taking up the implementation of CLMRS. It also includes household and farm visits by the responsible organizations. Usually, there is a child labor monitoring committee. They also visit households to have one on one conversations, raising awareness, offering them alternatives, generating referrals and remediation, helping the families access different social security schemes if available in that region, basically building short and long term solutions to address the risks. And of course, it's incomplete without follow up and reporting. So, the Child Labor Monitoring Committee sits together and does a formal follow up on the complaints that have been generated. And depending on the stakeholders involved, the relevant action is taken. It's The child labor monitoring and remediation system is also not as simple anymore as it used to be, because we have now moved towards addressing the complexities of child labor in a certain region or in a certain supply chain or a certain sector, which means the intervention also needs to be complex enough, nuanced enough, and should be intersectional enough to include different challenges and risks. And that's why we call it a multi-dimensional CLMRS, which goes beyond very basic child labor indicators to assess multiple risk factors. It's also more aligned with the UN guiding principles and OECD guidelines. And most importantly, it provides companies the insight into what are the risks on the ground, and enhances how to do their human rights due diligence. It At the grassroots level, a CLMRS that is multidimensional, which means it is more than just prevention and eradication and referral mechanisms for child labor, also helps in building the capacity of community-based workers, helps civil society organizations with the data that they have to do advocacy with the government, and gives a lot of evidence to address the root causes of child labor. Like I mentioned, CLMRS is increasingly becoming more and more innovative, and one of the most relevant part in today's time is that it is very much aligned with human rights due diligence principles, because it helps companies identify at a very early stage what the risks are associated with child labor. They can use this data to inform their due diligence processes, ensure action is taken, and data knowledge information is very, very useful. So the valuable data that has been collected under CLMRS can directly feed into companies' HRDD work, which can prioritize their action, help them prioritize their actions, also work on improving their due diligence policies, and report more accurately on child labor risks in their supply chains and what they are doing about it. It also helps the companies, it can help the companies in understanding what kind of remediation works in what kind of context, and not apply the same blueprint for all the communities. Um, and most importantly, when companies are implementing an area based approach or a child labor monitoring remediation system, that in itself is a very big evidence that they are committed to addressing child labor. It also helps companies to engage more closely with stakeholders, collaborate with governments, communities, and NGOs, and they can also leverage these relationships to build a stronger due diligence system that can be replicated in other commodities or in other sectors. Um, Most importantly, in today's time when companies have to report increasingly on their HRDD principles and what they are doing to address the violations associated with labor rights or child rights, CLMRS and area based approach offers a framework, a structure for continuous monitoring, feedback, enabling companies to track and improve the effectiveness of their interventions over time, and generate a feedback mechanism, feedback loop to combine the due diligence process and improvement in eliminating child labor. Also, increasing transparency and accountability with other stakeholders, because there is clear documentation and there is clear trust building with consumers and investors and shareholders as well. And just to put things into perspective, all of this is impossible without these very important groups, without these very important people. It's very important to understand that what are the different roles of civil society organizations, governments, private sectors, and unions, because they can be very, very strong pillars of implementing an area based approach. So, civil society organizations, without them, it's impossible to build capacity of community actors, impossible to collaborate with the relevant duty bearers. And they also help in facilitating working groups. And most importantly, advocating for integration of ABA models into national policies and budgets beyond just the project life cycle. And civil society organizations cannot do this work alone. Therefore, they must be supported by the governments. And eventually, area based approach models, child labor free zones, or child friendly villages need long term ownership from the governments themselves, and not rely completely just on civil society organizations to run these kind of models. So the political will here is very important. Institutionalizing area-based approach in policies and frameworks, labor inspection protocols is very important. And most importantly, without government's intervention and accountability, you cannot scale these models in the long term. Um, mm, child labor in supply chains remains now a very, very big challenge. So private sector can play a very important role in area-based approach, and there are multiple examples where in cocoa sector and coffee, where area-based approach, child labor free zones, child labor monitoring and remediation system is increasingly being adapted by private sector. They can use the data generated from child labor monitoring system to improve their due diligence, but also engage with upstream and downstream actors. Interestingly, it also aligns with the decent work agenda and living income. So you're addressing child labor not in isolation, but when you're engaging at the community level, you're also able, you have the insight into decent work and addressing economic issues at the community level, which brings us to the next stakeholder, which is the trade unions. Without them, the decent work agenda is incomplete. And if children need to be taken out of work, adults need decent work. So the reliance on trade unions is very, very critical to advocate for workers' protection, but also supporting organizing farmers, organizing workers, especially in informal economies, and report safe, talk about safe reporting environments to the relevant stakeholders. So, in a nutshell, what I hope we have been able to get some idea about what area-based approach is, the fact that it puts child rights at the center, but doesn't address child labor just in isolation, addresses it in a larger area, focuses on the socio-economic context, integrates tools like child labor monitoring and remediation system, and has given us very, very interesting and promising models like child labor free zones and child friendly villages. It is adaptable and scalable, so it can include innovative solutions that focus on migration as well, climate change, decent work, and it acts as a platform, as a structure for collaboration between stakeholders, and gives ample opportunities for resource mobilization and focusing on long-term interventions to address child labor. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gazal. Thank you, especially now near the end when you highlight the role of the tripartite model on fighting child labor. And I think what stands out so powerfully is the explanation of the Global March area-based approach. It is a profound commitment to break the cycle of victimization permanently. This isn't about one-time rescue, as you said. It's about building a resilient ecosystem around the child that prevents re-exploitation at every turn. I think that the genius of geographically focused model, it's a strategic depth by integrating prevention and sustained monitoring. The initiative acknowledges that the risk is ongoing, so congratulations on your work. Thank you for being here today with us and to present this. Now it is time for our questions. And I think we have one on the chat. I'm going to read for you. I think the one that we have here, it's for we have one for Anna and one for Malik. I'm going to read the one that is for Anna first. Congratulations on your presentation. Could you speak a little bit of the role of the CONAETI on fighting child labor? Thank you. Anna, you have the floor. If you could add,
Uh,
please, because not everybody knows about the acronym. So
sure. Right, sure. The CONAETI is the National Commission of Eradication Against the Child Labor. It's a national body responsible for coordinating Brazil's policies to prevent and eliminate the child labor. It's built by several organizations and institutions. It's more than a tripartite because it combines the government, the the workers' unions, the enterprises, associated, federal unions also, and we have the participation of the civil society, and also we have international organisms as the ILO and the UNICEF participating with us. And we also have the participation of other institutions that can be specialized in certain subjects about child labor, such as the federal uh, road police. And so we also have participation of some adolescents associations. Now we have three of them here in Brazil. So all of it is in a federal level. So it brings together all those participants, the ministries, the public agencies, the civil society, to plan and monitor strategies, nationally speaking, especially through the long-term national plan. We have work groups that we think about the special documents as a national way of attending to all the needs of children that are found in child labor, and it brings together all the responsibilities that the institutions already have according to the Brazilian law. So the social services, the health services. So this body, this national commission, it thinks together in several meetings that we have along the year to strengthen interinstitutionally the cooperation and the support to the all the fields of protection and all the network and also the inspection against the child labor. So our priority is to think and to organize ways of better combating the child labor and also giving the support to the children after we catch those child labor situations. That's it. That's the connect. I hope you could understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Just to, because I forgot to mention, the question was made by our colleague Karina Andrade, and she also has a question for Malik. Malik, how do you assess the engagement and interest of companies, especially multinationals, in developing due diligence policies on human rights, particularly regarding child labor?
Can you repeat the last part, please, particularly relating to?
Regarding child labor, I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, sure. We have had the opportunity to implement the area-based approach or child labor-free zones with different sizes of companies, from multinational companies to also small cooperatives, in the coffee sector, for instance, in Uganda. And there have been very positive experiences, but there have been challenges as well. And I'd like to begin by saying that when it comes to the larger companies, um, the the very complicated technical structures within the companies where you need a lot of, for instance, where you need a lot of approvals or policies take years to also adapt because there are different levels of management. Those are some of the things actually, surprisingly, and not so much about, of course, the intent matters, but when you're actually working on improving human rights due diligence with companies based on, trying to convince them that these are very good community led practices, and there should not be a lot of gap between what happens at the grassroots level, and it should be reflected in global companies policies. That's a very big task you're asking companies to work on, and there's somewhere you have to find a middle ground. So I won't say that it has completely been very difficult or impossible. I would say we've always had to find a middle ground, but there has been quite some interest by larger companies. On the other hand, when it comes to smaller companies or cooperatives, it also is a very interesting model to work with because you have better accessibility to farmers, to informal sector workers, which means there is a lot more transparency when it comes to small scale businesses. as compared to the large scale businesses. So overall, I think our experience has been mixed, but there is a lot of potential and there is enough evidence that larger companies are ready to invest in community centric approaches.
Thank you, Malik. So I don't know if the moderator is allowed to make questions, but I have some questions for you guys. I noticed that both presentations highlight powerful but distinct models. One is focused on state-led inspection and enforcement, is the case of the mobile group, and the other is focused on community-based monitoring and remediation, which the case of the area-based approach. My question is for both of you guys. From your experience, what are the most critical success factors for effectively linking top-down government enforcement with bottom-up community monitoring? And sorry about that. And to create a seamless protection system for children. So what should be the way to link these two types of initiatives, so then we can work together to fight child labor? I don't know if we're going by the other of the speakers. Maybe you could start, Anna.
Hi, Mayra. Could you repeat, please, the end of the question because I had a sound cut here?
Of course. I'm sorry about
Hello?
that. So my question is, what are the most critical success factors for linking top-down government enforcement, like the unit, with bottom-up community monitoring, like the Global March Initiative, to create a seamless protection system for children? Do you see a way to link these two types of initiatives? Can you hear
I
me?
would like, yes, I think I heard you. Could you please ask my colleague Malik first?
Of course, Malik, please go ahead. I think Anna's
Sorry.
having trouble hearing me. I'm going to send the question in writing.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a very very critical question, and I'd like to start by saying that there is a range of things, but in short, first and most important, there has to be alignment with what happens on the ground and what the policies are saying. So there's a big gap, especially coming from the civil society point of view. As civil society actors, we try our best to implement the interventions that work for community the best. Unfortunately, they are not reflected in the policies, don't support them. And by supporting, I mean the policies don't have enough budget, they don't have enough resources. In many countries, you can implement a child labor and monitoring remediation system, but you don't have enough labor inspectors to carry that out. And then a lot of burden falls on civil society actors, grassroots actors who are already very burdened. Most of them don't even ask for, a time compensation, for instance. So that the support from top is very important in terms of not just commitment but funds for increased monitoring, funds for increased capacity building. Secondly, communication, inter ministerial communication or communication between stakeholders is very important. So communication channels that understand the policy at the top and understand how to best do justice to that at the bottom, and ensure that issues at the bottom are being translated and being communicated at the top. So that's definitely there. And I think a monitoring and accountability mechanism is very very important, so that we hold the right duty bearers accountable, and the work pressure and the burden is not just falling on 2 3 groups because that is definitely not sustainable. So those are the three things I feel are essential to build, to bridge the gap between from from bottom to top.
Thank you, Malik. I think that's very insightful coming from you guys because, being government, we are sometimes not aware of how things are working in the communities. So it's very important for us to. And what you say about funding is fundamental. I think it's past the time for us to realize that this type of initiative needs money and needs funding, and we need inspectors in the streets and where they are needed to be, right? So thank you for that. Anna, would you like to comment? I don't know if we get the sound right.
Yes, I guess it was my sorry about it. It was my internet connection, I guess.
It's all right.
But I could hear
It
just a
happens
little
when
bit.
we're in a live streaming event, right?
Yes,
We're bound to have this sort of problems.
sure. What we have in our work as a CONAET, as a national commission, and also as the labor inspection at all, that we valorize very much the dialogue, the social dialogue, and the participation of the civil society with the groups, with the forums, the international and national forums that can help us to enhance our inspections and our policies, our public policies as well, to in this fight against the child labor. So in the CONAETI, in our commission, we have the representation of the civil society, and also that plays the same, in nationally speaking, the same role of the global march, which is very important because we have the link between the governors and the unions, and also all the matters that come from the society at all, through these organizations such as the Global March and our National Forum Against the Child Labor. I guess that is. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess you're right. I think Connect is a great example on how to connect top and the people that write the policies and the people that need the policies. So Connect is a very dynamic and I think democratic way of putting the problems and hearing the problems. So it's a great initiative. Thank you for that. So let me see if we have any comments. Okay, so now we have two more questions. I don't know if I have the time to go on, but I'm going to put them here. Um, we have someone asking. I could not get the name here. Someone asking about agriculture. So could you talk a bit, I think that's Brana, could you talk a bit about labor inspection in agriculture, where children might work on their family farms? This is very interesting. And how, I think Malik has something to add on this too. When this type of work happens, sometimes it's not understood as child labor because the child is working with their family. So what are the process when children are found in this instance when they're working for their families, with their families in their own land? I don't know, Anna, could you please, since Malik started the other one, could you please
Yes,
start with this one?
of
Go ahead.
course. Yes. Well, as you said, sometimes the family farms are not the kind of child labor that the inspection can, for now, get in that place because of several legal issues. But we have to, since we have a preparation of intelligence preparation of the GMTI operation, we we can find if this family farm, this child labor, has to do with any other all kinds of other types of activities, business activity, for example, because sometimes it's a family farm, but they work for an enterprise. So they are with a kind of agriculture there that they sell to another person, a bigger farm or a farm business, or or people that can distribute those what they cultivate in there. So we can, if we find out that that is the case, and then the inspection can get in, we can plan, and usually we work together with the. Usually, those kinds of work can also have to do with slavery work sometimes. So we have to see the situation itself and see how we can do that. But if it's merely a family farm with activities inside that they eat what they produce in there, so we have other ways to get into that family through the protection network. So that how it comes with the important activity of those commissions, those municipal commissions, to think about those family farms. But yes, the inspection also can get into those family farms if we find out that they are working for someone else beyond that family. I hope I could answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you. And Malik, do you have any experiences on that when it's within the family? How is the approach that you guys take?
Yeah. So I think it's very, from our experience, what I'd like to say is it's very important to understand children's work in agriculture because it is so informal and so complicated at the same time that you cannot also label everything as child labor. But most of the work that is being done for them is also hazardous in nature. So, like Anna also mentioned, differentiating between those two is very important. From our intervention, the best approach that we have found is not to sort of reprimand the family, because a lot of times the reason is that they are either not able to afford adult labor, or the household income really needs that kind of support. And even in some cases, even if that the support is not required, the education facilities are just not there, so the child probably goes back to working on the farm. So the best case approach here has been a to understand the situation, to understand the context, and usually from in our work through the area based approach or child labor free zones, when we are working with the child labor monitoring committee, household visits, talking to the families, trying to understand their situation, and then provide referrals and withdrawals and remediation according to that. Um, it's not as simple as withdrawing, identifying, withdrawing, and sending the child back to school, because that child may have missed 7, 8 years of education. What are you going to do in that? In about that learning gap? So you also have to think about, this is where the decent work agenda comes in. This is where we say that yes, child labor alone is not the problem that we are dealing with. We also have to ensure that the adults have access to decent work opportunities, and that there is a transition from hazardous work to decent work also for the child, if learning and education, mainstream learning and education, is not possible. So that kind of holistic approach, in our experience, has been increasingly being used in different contexts, especially in agriculture.
Thank you, guys. That's very insightful, and yeah, it's very. I think when it's within the family, we have to take a lot of other factors into to consideration. So I don't know if we have any other questions. I think we are on. I think we don't have time for them. If I'm correct, I'm receiving here some information. Let me see. I think yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have more time, and it will be amazing to keep talking. This is a very important topic of discussion, but unfortunately, we have to go. We were able to address all the questions, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, you guys were nice enough to put your contact in your presentation, so people can get in contact with the Ministry of Labor in Brazil, and we are happy to forward the questions and to help everybody understand how these two important initiatives and approaches are dealing with this pressing and urgent matter that is the child labor on our days today. So thank you both for being here. I don't know if you have any last words so we can finish. Gazal.
No, I just want to say that this has been a very, very interesting discussion, and these we need more such dialogues. I think the contrasting models about something that is government led and something that is, not just CSO led, but maybe needs to be more government led. It provides a very interesting conversation, and learned a lot. And I think some questions were very, very useful. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Gazal. Anna, do you have any last comments for us?
As well, I'd like to thank you, Malik, for your presentation as well, and the Global March participation and co-host in this event. And yes, it's very important to have more dialogues about all the kinds of activities, governmental, civil societies. Uh, Everything is very valid in this combat, in this fight against the child labor. Thank you very much for everyone. Thank you, Maida.
Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for everyone that connect with us for today webinar, and thank you once again for your time. I know you were working with a lot of other things, so we're very grateful for you guys to be here and for everyone that connect with us. So this is the end. Thank you all for being here. We see you next time.